Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the monthly MENA Entrepreneur Webinar Series. We hold these webinars first Wednesday of every month with a new topic with one of our top mentors here at 500. This is our 7th webinar. We have a lot more webinars coming up, so you could definitely share it with your friends, within your network, whoever you want. This is free for everybody to attend. Let us just play this video real quick for you so you can get a sense of what 500 is all about.
While it might have seemed like a far-fetched idea 8 years ago, nowadays I think most everyone here agrees that it isn't just about Silicon Valley anymore. Innovation and talent really do exist everywhere, in all corners of the world. Whether it's here in Silicon Valley or San Francisco, Mexico, Egypt, India, Vietnam, Turkey, or Korea, entrepreneurs are changing these ecosystems, changing technology, and they're ultimately fueling a lot of the economic growth in their respective markets.
The world is taking notice. A leading global venture capital firm called 500 Startups just launched a $10 million fund here in Ho Chi Minh City.
As 500 Startups, we are a global fund. Our mandate from the beginning has been to empower entrepreneurs from all over the world, the most unlikely places and the most unlikely founders that don't look like the typical prototype Silicon Valley founder.
A lot more than $1 billion now, annualized run rate. Some mistakes that I've learned throughout my years in tech, and I don't want to repeat that again.
We started VC Unlock because training investors is a very, very important part of ecosystem development.
Tech is a force that can unite nations. Trade has always stopped us from killing each other, and accelerated trade can help us love each other even more. That's what I believe in, and I think that a lot of cross-border kind of investments and culture can really help bring that true.
This is just to give you a glimpse of 500. All right, let's introduce the team. This is the team for the Sanabil 500 program, which covers the MENA region. We have Betty Yang, she is the general partner at 500. Amal Dukhan, I'm assuming most of you already know her. She's our partner. Bayan Al-Ghamdi, she's the one in charge of the program. Myself, Dave. Kareem, he's in charge of our portfolio. He's the portfolio manager. And then Sama Shawi, I assume a lot of you have heard from her at least once. She's the regional head of events and community. These are some of the numbers we have achieved here: 500 global, more than 2,400 portfolio companies, 80 plus countries, 23 unicorns. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and they're increasing year by year, honestly. Being specifically here in the MENA, we've been here for more than 9 years, actually, invested in over 200 companies in 14 different countries as well. The 53 plus accelerated companies are actually increasing year by year. Like, we're already into batch 2 in the Sanabil program, so the number is increasing. This is what a typical application funnel looks like. Please don't be scared by it. We usually, like, at least for batch 1, we received more than 520 applications. 150 of those went through the first interview, 70 made it to the second interview, and then 45 to the finals. Less than 2% have been accepted. The percentage is also the same for batch 2. So it is a rigorous process. but we really pay great attention to every application. These are some of the sectors that we have invested in and are investing in. We're not looking for a specific sector. We're pretty sector agnostic, honestly. Also for the countries, we cover the entire MENA region. The program starts with building strong foundation. This is lectures, heavy lectures, honestly, for the first 2 weeks. And then we move into the growth weeks, which last for 7 weeks. These are filled off with experimentations, innovations, and a couple of lectures here and there. The program is 12 weeks long. It does not stop after you graduate from the program. You do get into the 500 strong community, which gives you access to all the founders and the mentors within the 500 network globally. You could utilize office hours even after you are done with the program, as well as within the program itself. This is what the models look like. We start with the first week, which is fundamentals of growth, and then we move to the 7th weeks for the growth. The last 2 to 3 weeks are the finance, fundraising, and pitch prep. After that is what I was just talking about, which is the 500 strong community. This is ongoing support of access to all mentors, founders, perks, learnings, everything you could have in the program or after. This is batch 2 schedule. We're done by December 18th, 19th, 12 weeks long. This is the typical schedule for each batch. Applications are still closed. However, this is the link to the interest form. If you do sign up for the interest form, we will email you as soon as we open applications, which is going to be in January, hopefully early January. I'll share this link with you as well. To be even extra tunes with us in every step, follow us on Twitter, Insta, Facebook. We have the same handle, 500VC_MENA. If you have any questions, write them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them back. I don't want to take much time of Johannes's amazing lecture. So welcome, Johannes. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you everyone who is taking the time today to join this little webinar. I promise it will be super actionable and hopefully even interesting. Let me just try to share my screen properly. Hopefully that works. Okay, can someone give me a quick thumbs up that they can see the screen? So, Dave, can you see the screen? Okay, yeah. Cool. You can see. Nice. Perfect. Danny, Robert, Desmond. There's some familiar names that I can see here. Perfect. Okay, great. So yeah, I'll jump right in. First of all, quickly about myself. So I am, well, I guess first and foremost a 500 mentor. I've done, I think I've done probably more than almost 10 different programs. I've mentored over 150 startups, and many of them in the MENA region. I'm going back to Saudi actually in a month's time, and I really enjoy working with the MENA founders. In my day job, most of my time right now I'm spending on a company called Leadsy, which is a SaaS company. So I'm definitely still in the weeds doing things. The things that I'm teaching, I'm also doing myself. My background is in marketing. I used to work for different startups in London and also worked for PayPal for many years. And as you can see on the left-hand side, I was also traveling a lot. So this is where you can see me sitting by the Lake Atitlan, which is in Guatemala, with a nice view on the volcano. Then me cycling, this is something else that I really like doing. And also me with a giant surfboard, which tells you that I'm not a very good surfer, but I try to do my best and I enjoy it a lot. Cool. So that's about me. So but you're probably much more interested in what is this talk about, because the title is a little bit, you know, not that obvious, right? So basically, what's the purpose of this talk? So at 500, something that we spend a lot of time on is looking at your funnel, essentially, and some important steps in that funnel. By the way, Dave, this is, I'm not sure if you're recording this, but currently I don't think it's recorded. So maybe have a look if this is not done at the moment. The funnel starts, there are different steps in that funnel. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. And basically, this talk is really there to give you ideas on how to improve every single step in all these funnels. So it's a framework that we can use to give you ideas to improve different actions at different stages of essentially your customer journey. Okay, so some examples would be in the first part of this journey, you want people to actually discover you, to find out, like, you know, what are you about? So you probably want to talk about, like, what pain points are you solving? What audiences are best to reach? Also testing different channels. Then you have another phase where we're talking about, like, actually acquiring those customers. So how can you put out creatives, websites, ads, and content that actually converts these people and actually makes them become customers and pay. And then also retention is super important, right? Like, how can we make sure these people actually stay with us and continue to use us? That's all about building habits, where all the things that I'm going to talk about are extremely crucial as well to understand. Then also, how can we avoid churn? And then even beyond that, how can we make people share our product, our service with other people? What's the motivation behind that, and so on? Something that we spend a lot of time on with at 500 is talking about a framework called Jobs to be Done. I will not go into detail about this framework, but if you are part of our programs, you will learn a lot about it. So my question for you, though, is without knowing this framework, but when you make a decision to buy something, what do you think is most important for you? Is it like the functionality of the product? Is it like the emotional side, or even like the social side, like how others will perceive you when you have this product? What do you think? Just type it in the chat. What do you think is most important to you? We can make this quite interactive, maybe. Let's see if you're all up for it, but it's not that many people who are on this call, so. All of them, okay, yeah. That's a good. Functional and emotional, yeah. Danny says it depends, okay, good. There's always a good answer. Social, if I'm buying something that's very visible, that's an interesting answer, which is a good answer, I believe. Yeah, okay, cool. So we have a few thoughts there. So when we do this, when I ask this question, normally I would do it in a room with loads of startup founders, and usually what is reflected there is that men usually think they're a little bit emotional, but it's mostly logical, right? So the decision is made like based on the facts. Women think actually there's a lot of emotion involved. So they think it's more emotion, then a little bit of logic is also added there. And then also what's very well known in the world is that Germans believe, sorry, and actually I'm German, so I should have mentioned that maybe, but you probably have told from my accent already. Germans think it's all logic, okay? And usually if we were in a room, I would hope to see some laughter and hear someone actually laughing about this joke, but I cannot tell if this is happening now. But anyway, but how we actually make decisions, there's been a lot of science around this, okay? And it's a little bit more like this. There's actually a lot more emotion involved than what we think, what we rationally believe. And I want to talk about a famous study that is from a guy called Antonio Damasio. He's a famous researcher around like how basically the brain works and how we make decisions as well. And I want to play a quick clip. You tell me if this works. Hopefully it should work fine. Where he basically talks about the studies that he's been doing. And he's been doing these studies on with people who basically, they lost a part of their brain that is responsible for processing emotions. So they basically didn't have this part in their brain that allowed them to process any emotions that they were feeling. Okay, so here's a little snippet of what he said about this study.
But the thing I most liked in these patients was
Can you hear?
We asked them about restaurants, and this was really quite remarkable. And they said, "What restaurant do you want to go to tonight?" And said, "Well, we could go to this one." And they said, "But I take it that this restaurant has been rather empty recently, so that's probably a bad sign. It's a sign that the food may not be so good. On the other hand, it's true that if it is more empty, we're likely to get a table, and therefore we should go there." But then, and the thing will go on endlessly until you really feel like pounding on the table and said, "Well, get real and choose." But the reason why they can't choose is that they haven't got this sort of lift that comes from emotion. It is emotion that allows you to mark things as good, bad, or indifferent, literally in the flesh.
So can someone give me a thumbs up if they could hear it? But that would be great. But if you couldn't, for whatever reason, essentially he was saying that, Rand, okay, good. He was testing this. He was talking about one person who was in the study, and he was asking this person like, okay, you have these different restaurants, which one would you go to? And this person, was explaining like all the different benefits of going one to the other, but the person could not make a decision. Okay, so basically, in the study, he found out that people without the ability to process emotions were completely unable to make even the smallest decisions, like what they should wear, what they should eat, or where they're going to go for dinner. So this study really proved that emotion is extremely, extremely important in our decision making, and that's exactly what the decision hill is about, or it's a big part of what this is about, because it's usually counterintuitive to most founders. Okay, so let's continue with the decision hill. By the way, we'll have time for questions after, so I'm just going to continue for now. And also, I'll give you a link to the slide so you can see all the references and some other things that I will not be able to go through today. So what's a decision hill? The decision hill is basically a visualization of a decision or actually an action that we want someone to take. So this is visualized as a hill because basically every action that we take has some kind of friction involved, right? So it's like going up a hill. We need to do something to complete an action. So that could be when someone wants to buy your product, they need to sign up, they need to pay, they need to maybe wait some time to be verified, they need to, there's always some steps involved. Even if you want to get a coffee, from your coffee shop around the corner, you need to walk there, decide what you want to do. There's like friction also with your brain. So basically any decision that we can think of, any action always has some kind of hill involved, some kind of friction, okay? So that's why this is this hill. And then essentially what I just told you was that emotion is actually what gets us started on this hill. The premise of a change of emotion is the reason why we want to take certain actions, okay? So for example, if you want people to buy your product, really in the way to get them is to evoke some kind of emotion that they think, oh, this is going to make me feel better in my life for whatever reason. Or this is maybe it's a social emotion, which is like, oh, I can show off to my friends about this. And that's why I want to get more social recognition about this and so on. So basically, we want certain products or take actions, very generally speaking, because of how we think they're going to make us feel, okay? This is how any decision starts that we take in our lives, okay? The next step is what founders often kind of put too much effort on, which is the logical side, but it's also very important. So logic comes next. So logic is basically a way for us to justify why this decision that we're already interested in, we already have this craving for this product, service, action. We use logic to justify it to ourselves, but also to others. So again, I will go through an example in a minute to make this a bit clearer. But basically, it's usually when a decision is made, you obviously have to justify it to yourself, but also you have to often have other people involved. Maybe it's your wife, your partner, your friends, and you kind of want to be able to explain, why did you buy this expensive new MacBook, or why do you have this new phone that you just purchased? And we do this through logic. But also it's also for yourself. Like, you want to feel confident that this is the right decision, that you kind of, for this craving that you have. Then we have the next step is motivation. So if we think of this hill, there's some friction involved, right? So we want to be able to motivate our potential customers enough so they actually go over this hill. So they actually get to the top of the hill where they actually make the purchase or take the action. So for that, we need some motivation. And obviously, they're already going to be a little bit motivated because of the emotional, like, yes, I want this. But our job as product people or as marketers is actually to convince them to say, hey, like, to boost their motivation even more. So here in this step, we think about, what can we do to motivate these people to sign up right now, to make the purchase right now, or to do the action that we want them to do, refer a friend, for example. Okay. And then the last thing, which is also extremely crucial, is the reward. So again, any action that we take, we expect some kind of reward for it. So that is essentially experiencing this change of emotion that we were trying to achieve in the first place. Okay, so if we buy a certain product that's meant to make us feel better, maybe make our skin better, then we want to experience that it actually feels like, okay, it's doing something to my skin. I don't know, as a specific example. I'll give you more examples of that in a minute. And so basically, this reward is always connected back to the initial emotion that was really important of why they even were interested in our product in the first place, right? So basically, the reward is like connected to how people wanted to feel, and they should experience what this initial emotion was. Otherwise, basically what's going to happen is they're not going to come back, right? They're not going to use your product again, and they're not going to buy again or do the action that they did again. Again, I will talk more about this and give you lots of examples. Okay, so this is it. This is a decision hill in the theory. And I will now go through an example, which is the example of the Apple Watch. And I've actually spent the time of updating myself about what the newest Apple Watch actually does, and actually also how it's marketed by Apple. So the new Apple Watch Series 7, I think it was announced very recently in the last event. For those who don't know, has a bigger screen. And for those who can't see it, that's what that's what you can see on the screen. It's a little bit more to the edge, so there's less of a like I guess you call it bevel or something around that. So the watch is bigger, okay? The screen is bigger, and then also it's more durable. So they say it's like, it basically you cannot break it. It's great for outdoors, and they have a great video which I'm not going to show now, but you can go, if you go to the Apple website, of someone who's basically cycling through these mountains on the right hand side, and who falls off the bike actually, and you can see how the watch is dropped, and you're like, oh my god, is something going to happen? But no, obviously he's fine, and also the watch is fine, which has a very emotional side to it as well, by the way. So they're not just talking about like the feature of the watch, but they're putting it into the context of someone who is in the nature, who is active. And again, I will talk more about this. Okay, so this is just for context. So what do you think on the emotional side? What you can type in the chat. What emotional reasons could someone have to buy this new Apple Watch? Any ideas? Just type it in the chat. Social status, okay. Yeah. I want a new watch. I would ask here, why do you want a new watch, right? So does the old watch not work anymore? Is there, I mean, what are you hoping to get from just getting a new watch? Got the latest gadgets, want to feel cool. Okay, relieved about Jumpstart. Oh, Danny is interesting thought. Jumpstart their healthy lifestyle. That's a very interesting thought, because this is also something that Apple talks a lot about. So some things that I came up with was like, maybe they want to feel more active. So that's exactly what Danny meant. I think what he meant here is like, they actually want to feel like they live an active lifestyle, right? So this watch is a part of that, because it's meant to encourage you to do more exercise. It's also quite luxury, absolutely, right? It's more expensive. It's not the standard Casio watch, right? It's not cheap. So there's probably something here about impressing others, some social thing here as well. Someone mentioned also, it's like it's a latest gadget, right? It makes you feel cool. It's like kind of innovative. Maybe it's part of your identity to be someone who has the latest gadget as well. Yeah, but also there's this like health aspect to it, right? Because that's also something that Apple talks a lot about. Perfect. And then we have logic. So here, the things that I came up with was, okay, the display is bigger, which, I mean, I don't want to sound sarcastic here, but it's, for me, the difference seemed to be quite small, but still there's a lot of talk about how much bigger this display is. So it's tiny a little bit, but you can imagine how people use this as a talking point, right? They're like, oh, my old watch, it was a little bit too small and maybe I couldn't read certain things, but now it's bigger. Like that's a big reason for me to use it. It also is more crisp, has a better resolution, I believe. It won't break, so it's very durable. That's also a logical thing, right? So I could talk to my friends and say, hey, like I got this because I do a lot of outdoor sports and I'm always worried that it might break. So now this new one is actually much more durable. It charges faster. Maybe I was frustrated before with my old one and it was like charging really slowly. So that could be another logical reason to use it, to justify it for myself, why I should spend another, I don't actually know exactly how much it costs, probably more than, yeah, it has more health sensors, great one as well. Perfect. And then so motivation. So Apple actually does a really good job at already kind of creating this craving, right? Like people want to have their products. They are extremely emotional, actually, by definition. That's how Apple markets their products. But they also are clever about some other things. So obviously there's a bit of a crisis right now with getting the I would say the ingredients, but like the products to build the watches, right? Or same with laptops and then phones. So what's probably very likely is that in the beginning there's going to be very limited stock, right? Especially that's actually usually the case for new Apple products. You probably want to be one of the first ones to buy it, because otherwise you'll have to wait a couple of months or at least weeks in order to get the product delivered to you. So there could be some kind of urgency aspect here where you probably want to be fast to buy it pretty quickly, because otherwise the stock might not last very long. So this would be an urgency side of it. Also, they do a pretty good job at making it very easy to order. So this is something that is meant to take friction away. So friction, as I explained earlier, is like basically the steeper this hill is, the more friction is involved, right? And so what they try to do is they try to make it really easy for someone who already uses Apple devices to order some other Apple devices. So they have this app on iPhone where you can actually order Apple products with like a few taps and then pay with Apple Pay. So it's super simple. And that's also on purpose, right? They want to make it easy for you. You don't have to go to the store. You don't even have to go to the website. Super easy with the app done, okay? But it's fair to say that Apple doesn't employ a lot of these kind of tactics that I will talk about in a few minutes. And then the reward. Actually, what could be the reward? Again, that's a question to you guys. What do you think? What is the reward that people should be feeling for them to think like, hey, I made the right decision. This is actually why I bought your watch in the first place. What do you think the reward would be? Any ideas? People comments. I love it. It's actually the first thing that I put in as well. So obviously, you know, if one of the reasons why you bought it was to say, hey, I want others to see it. I want others to comment on it. If someone says, hey, wow, Johannes, this is the new watch, isn't it? I'll be like, yeah, of course, it's the new one. You know, like that might be, yeah, you could be flashing it, but then you want to expect someone to comment on it, right? So that could be one thing. Let's assume it's not all just about the social side. Maybe it's also someone who actually wants to do more exercise. So, you know, actually, maybe someone actually feels like they're working out more often because the watch actually kind of encourages you to do that. So that would also be a reward, right? That's much less kind of, like the social motivation side, but actually something that's more inherent to them. Okay, Noura, this is a good idea. So badges, sense of achievement, that's a very nice idea of something that we could do. I'm not sure Apple does that. I think they have a few things like that. So they have this, like, if you met like a number of steps or movements per day, then you have achieved like a goal. They have some things like that. I don't have an Apple Watch myself, so I don't exactly know, but they do that, right? So they want to make you feel also that you have been working out more, for example. And that reward is a reason why you think, okay, yeah, it was great that I purchased this watch because it helps me to work out more. But Apple helps us to understand that by giving us these statistics, these reminders, and that's a whole part of this experience, right? What else did I put there? Maybe also improvement of my health and my physical abilities, right? So if I can see my performance is improving, then maybe I feel like, okay, I made the right decision here. This was connected to what I wanted in the first place, which is feeling more active, more healthy, and maybe the innovative side, feeling cool, stylish with the comments of my friends. So you can see how these two things are very connected. And hopefully you can already see how this can be useful to understand that when we think about our products, the products that we build, and also our marketing, okay? Okay, so I'm going to dig in a little bit more into these four aspects. So emotion, logic, motivation, and reward. Okay. First one, emotion. So a bit of theory again. So basically, our emotions, they actually stem from desires. And there was, again, another US psychologist called Stephen Rice. And he actually found out that the number of desires that we have as humans is not infinite. In fact, it's actually it's a limited number. It's 16 basic desires that he identified that are essentially that they're very deeply rooted in all of us, in all us humans, and are common to everyone. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone has the same desires. That's what it means. But it doesn't mean that everyone craves the same desires the same way. Okay. So let's look at some examples. Yeah, there's actually a link to the study, so you can look at that. It's very interesting. Actually, before I go into that, the examples, one other book that also talks about this is called Atomic Habits from James Clear. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And he also talks about this. So he says that desire is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. Yeah. And so even the tiniest action is tinged with the motivation to feel differently. So I was talking about this in the beginning, right? So the reason why why we want to get a new product, new service, new whatever, is because we want to have a change, right? We want to change our current state of desire, basically, of feeling in some way or another. Sometimes we're more conscious of that, sometimes we're less. But basically, this is how that is defined. So some examples would be things like social status, power, acceptance of others, independence, but also physical activity, right? The Apple Watch example is a very good one for that. Honor, even things like curiosity is also a desire, right? So that's something that's been used very often, I think, by different companies. So these are some examples. So now we know these desires, but what I told you is emotions. Okay, so with basically what's going to happen is if we have a certain desire, but this desire is not fulfilled, we kind of feel like we should have more social status, but we don't experience that enough, then what happens is we develop emotions about it, right? So we develop positive or negative emotions, and we can actually tap into either of them. So positive emotions could be things like we feel accomplished, proud, we feel confident, we feel compassionate, surprise, comfort, and so on, right? We feel like we gain knowledge. That's also an example. So if we were curious before we gain knowledge, we're maybe not going to be as curious as we were before that, you know, about certain things. But also it can be negative, right? So it could be boredom as the example, like we feel like we're just super bored. Okay, if we're bored, we can tap into that feeling and make me be more excited about something. Or we can feel angry. We can feel angry because maybe we don't have the social status that we think we deserve. That could literally turn into anger for some people, right? So basically what I'm saying is we can tap into both of these sides and try to make people feel either this negative feeling or this positive feeling in order to make them interested in our product. Okay. Cool. So I want to start with an example now and have another quick video. Maybe this is a relatively old video, but it's for a B2B product actually. And we often have this question like, hey, does this apply to B2B as well? And I want to play this quickly, and then we can talk about it after.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time? And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows, only time? We gotta
Okay, I'm going to stop here. I think it's an epic ad, by the way. I love it. But what's my point here? So you can see that it talks about, at some point now, it talks about the Volvo dynamic steering. This is obviously not a consumer product. Like none of us is going to buy such a truck, right? This is a very, very specific audience. And you can see even the music is so emotional, right? It's like, this is not just like, you know, they're not going to talk about, you know, this is the new Volvo dynamic steering. These are the features. No, it starts very, very emotional. And this is how they capture the attention. And of course, they also capture the attention probably of many other people that have nothing to do with trucks. But the hope here is that this gets to the people who actually make these decisions and who will think, oh, like maybe I should consider Volvo, a Volvo truck in the next purchase I'm making. So that's a nice B2B example, I think. I have some more examples. I'm not going to be able to play them all. I won't play this one. Here's one from Zendesk. It's amazing as well. It's basically about this company that they work like for a Match.com sort of company in India. And it's basically a case study, but it's so emotional because they talk about how they're basically making people love each other, right? Or find the love of their lives through this platform. It's amazing. So again, I'll send you the link to the slides. You can watch it after if you want. Another example here, this is just a website. It doesn't have to be video, by the way, right? So what is emotional about this? This is the homepage of Drift, which is like a email marketing or conversational marketing tool. Any thoughts why I put this here? The women express, yes, exactly, right? It's so simple. So, I mean, if you think about it rational, why is this woman there? Why is she, what does it have to do with this platform? But instantly we as humans, we're drawn to a laughing face, like smiling face, right? It's such an emotional thing. And it's such a simple thing as well. Like, she probably is not a Drift user, I'm pretty sure, but it works. She seems very kind of normal, human, but the smile is just like kind of really makes a difference here, right? So it's really the smile that the reason why I put this on here. The rest of the messaging is relatively fact of the matter, I would say. But Drift is very, very good at their marketing. They talk a lot about conversational marketing, and there's a lot of emotional sides involved in that as well. There's another great one about the script. I won't have time to play this. It's probably the most epic SaaS tool video I've ever seen. So you need to look at this in your own time if you want to look at more examples. Extremely emotional. This is humor. It's extremely funny, basically. Even for me as a German, I find it funny. Okay, and then so I also want to show this quick Apple example because we spoke about it. So this is from the landing page, and the headline is massively motivating. So again, this is really talking about this, like, this is not just a watch. This is something that motivates you to exercise more. Like, again, it's around this emotion of, oh, I want to be more active, this sort of things. So I hope these examples make sense. It's much easier to find examples for consumer, but I wanted to show you especially quite a few for B2B, because there's always a human behind that too. Okay. Yeah. So another B2C example: lose your innocence in 3.9 seconds. I love it, right? It's not logical. It's like losing your innocence. It's a very emotional thing, and I think BMW is always trying to appeal to that. Actually, I have more examples. I won't have time to go through all of them now, but I guess you get the point that even software that seems to be quite boring, like this accounting tool or payroll tool, talks about how you deserve something better. Like, deserve, it's such a strong expression. So, okay, I'm going to skip that one and I'll go straight to logic. So logic is relatively straightforward, I believe. But basically, to remind you, it's like, what things do we use to justify an action or a purchase to others and also to myself, right? First off, some challenges. So the problem is, and this is something really important to understand, our logical brain is pretty lazy. It is actually, there's a reason why it is lazy, by the way. It's because it needs a lot of energy. Yeah, our body is trying to prevent losing too much energy, or to keep the energy contained as much as possible. So that's why we're looking for shortcuts. And that is also why, by the way, these like habits exist, because we don't want to think about everything. It's our body is like going into this automated mode and makes it easier to do certain things without thinking about it. It kind of gets depleted easily. And what that means is we don't want to overwhelm the logical brain too much. So the rule of thumb is to not give it more than 3 to 4 logical pieces at a time. So don't have a landing page or like an ad where you mention like 10 different reasons why you have the best solution. It's probably not going to work because people will not be able to remember it. Okay. So what are logical aspects? So it's pretty straightforward, I think, right? It's things like features, statistics about the product, anything about the reliability, and also the price, right? The price is usually introduced relatively later when people already want to have this desire to buy the product. I have another example for that. I'm not sure we have time, so I'll move on. But basically some examples here. So this was actually for the older watch model. The watch that hasn't display that never sleeps is a feature, right? I looked at Tesla as well. Tesla is not extremely emotional in the marketing, I would say, but they are, here's some examples for the logical side. So built for safety. So this would be this reliability stuff that I mentioned. So they obviously have like these ratings here. So that's an example for the logical side. Again, another Tesla example is here. These quick facts: acceleration time, the top speed, and then this dual motor all-wheel drive that they have. So okay, but I think the more interesting part here is the motivational part. which is something that, especially in marketing and also in product, can be used very well. So here it's really about like, how can we motivate people to take an action? So this is often being used in like optimizing landing pages, optimizing any call to action, optimizing flows in your product or in general. And there are two sides to this. The first one is we have to think about how can we make it easier for someone to take an action. So that's pretty straightforward, right? How can we take out friction? How can we make this hill less steep, basically? And the second thing is, how can we boost motivation? How can we make someone actually do it right now rather than they're going to be like, I'm not really that sure, should I really do this? And the way to do it is basically to go back to some of the kind of human principles, which I thought I had. I have a book on this. The way to think about this is, how can we make it easier, first of all? So we make it easier by making it less, take less time to complete certain steps. How much it costs is actually also make it easier. If we use something that's a socially accepted behavior, like if you have your checkout like Amazon has, it will be pretty normal for people to use it because it's, but if you make it different, then it's like people have to think about it more. And then that lastly, also, it's like the thought, right? Have to put more thought into it. Are you asking them loads of really complicated questions? Then probably you're going to lose some people there. And so for the second thing, for boosting motivations, there's a great another book here by Cialdini. It's a classic in like the growth marketing space, which is about the psychology of influence of persuasion. So here, this is really about like, how can we boost someone's motivation using some of these like growth hacks almost. The first one is monkey see what monkey do. So this is about social proof. So we as humans, we are hardwired to do what other people are doing. There's not much we can do about this. It's just the way we function. It's back from the evolutionary times when we were a monkey and we would follow what they were doing. Examples. The first one is social proof on ads or posts. You know, I'm much more likely to look at an ad. This is a Facebook ad as an example. If it has loads of shares, loads of likes, loads of comments, because I think, oh, there must be something there that I'm maybe missing out on, or that there's some proof that this is good. So I'm much more likely to follow this, to act on it, basically. Another example, so this is from Twitter. So Paul Graham liked something. So Paul Graham, some of you might know him. He liked something. So I'm like, okay, there's some social proof there, right? So I maybe might think he's he knows what he is doing. I respect him, so I'm more likely to follow his kind of advice in this sense. And social proof could also be like logos of partners, of like other companies people would do that allow me to think, okay, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. Bargain, I think, is pretty straightforward. So this is pretty much all people love a bargain, right? It's like, basically you think you get a good deal. There's usually some kind of discount of some sort, or could also be like an added product or an added thing. We all fall for that. Scarcity. So probably the best company that uses all of these tricks is Booking.com. So for example, this example here, which says only one room left at this price on our site, which actually is super interesting, right? Because when you read this, you think, oh, there's only one room left for this price. It's going to get more expensive. But they're not even saying that. They're just saying it's just on this site. And they're not even saying if it gets more expensive. It could be that the next rooms are going to be cheaper, but you don't know this, right? So it's very, very tricky messaging. Urgency. So basically something is going away soon. So you probably want to, act now to do it. So here, for example, again, Booking.com, it was booked 2 times for your dates in the last 6 hours. Okay, like I should probably book quickly because it's going away. Commitments, consistency. So this is the old example here is, if we ask someone, how likely are you to recommend us? There's a typical NPS question. The next action, if they say very likely, should be to actually recommend us in this moment. Because when they tell us that they're likely to recommend us, they actually are more likely to do it after they tell us that they would do it. So it's just like we want to be consistent with the things that we say we do, and that's how we can use that basically as a little trick. Then lastly, authority. So it's similar to social proof, but it's like specific people say something and we trust it. The Paul Graham example is actually more that that category, to be fair. And then lastly, reciprocity. So this is like, you know, if you do something nice to your customers, give them something free maybe, then they're also going to be more likely to think, oh, I kind of owe them something, so they will do something for you. It's just a human principle. Okay, so I hope these make sense. I'm just going to quickly go through the reward side because we don't have that much time left, and I want to have maybe at least 3 minutes for questions. So I spoke about reward already. So this is like, we want our customers to really like feel that they're getting the reward that they were looking for, right? Some examples here would be, so this is my wife's running stats. So basically like this says so this is comparing her performance versus other women of her age. And it says she was like much faster basically than other women of her age. This obviously is there's a reason why Nike says that to her, right? Because it motivates her to show her, hey, you're better than other women your age, like you're doing a great job. And obviously probably over time, maybe they would also show her how she's getting better over time and so on. But this is playing on the competitiveness that we also have as humans. We try to compare ourselves with others. And this is obviously going to make her feel good. It's going to be like, oh, cool, like I'm actually better than others, you know? Another example, B2B. This says 1.83 gigabyte of bandwidth served in October. This is like a content delivery network. Very geeky thing. But also it says we stopped 130 threats. So this service works fine without this email. This email does not have to be sent. But when I receive this email every month, I always feel like, okay, cool, like this service is really worth the money. Actually, it's even free for most people. So it's just like a simple way of me reminding what the value was. LinkedIn, you've all have seen that, like, oh, your profile is getting views, like great job. So you kind of feel like it's worth to be on LinkedIn because people see me. This is an example from Google Maps. If you add something there, like I added this photo of this tortilla place in Mexico somewhere, and it had like over 500 views. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Why is this important? Because I want to, probably for me, it was important to influence others, to kind of help them with their decisions. And by doing this, it makes me feel like I'm doing that, right? Shopify, another example. So if you look at rewards and like how they work, and how we can think about it in a structured way, there are extrinsic ones where maybe, for example, how much time did you save? How much money did you save? Information like, hey, here's some white paper that you received. There are intrinsic ones as well. So for example, you've completed some process, 100% of your profile is filled out, is what LinkedIn always says. Or maybe it's like some kind of, you reached a new level in a game. That's also something that motivates people. Or things like simple things like joy. Just add some joy to your products and make them feel good. Then we also have social rewards. So the recognition stuff that I just mentioned for Google Maps, or the competition reward that I showed for my wife. So yeah. High five. This is the MailChimp high five that I hope they still do. I'm not sure. So just to recap, this is the decision hill. We can use this for like our kind of funnel in marketing, but also in product. But actually to really, we can use it for kind of every action that happens within your company. Okay, you can always think about them as little decision hills. And you can think about how can we optimize them? How can you make sure people experience a reward so they do them again? So I have a little recap here as well. Again, I will send you the slides because actually it's here. So there's a link here to the slides. Maybe take a screenshot of that or something. And there's also a way to contact me there. So yeah, so we don't have much time for questions, but I want to go through the Q&A quickly. So if you have questions now, just type them in. So someone asked at the beginning of the session, what are good indicators of product market fit? It's always a great question. Doesn't have anything to do with this slide, with this talk, but basically, I think, so there's different school of thoughts, and you can Google also definitions of that. But my definition would be, if you are able to acquire customers at a good CPA, meaning your CPA is lower than your customer lifetime value, and these customers are sticking with you, so they're coming back regularly, depending on what regularly means for you as an app or as a company, then you probably have good product market fit. But also the second thing to add on that is it a significant market? If your market is like 50 people, you have product market fit in a market of 50 people, but that's not really going to make you have a significant company. So the second criteria I would add there is it needs to be a significantly big enough market where you can continue to acquire customers at this, like, at a good CPA, and as a show that you have the retention of people coming back. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Any other questions? No questions. I take it as a good sign, and you're all just maybe you're just all overwhelmed. You're like, wow. But I hope it's obvious how you can use this. And it's one more question now that just came in. Okay, we have 2 more minutes, so I will answer the question. If I'm experiencing churn, what step should I check? That's a great question. And actually, we can really, again, think about the decision hill here, right? So if you're experiencing churn, probably you have a problem with your reward, right? Because people start using your product, but they probably don't feel or experience the reward that they were expecting. So there's 2 ways to address this. So you either need to change what are you promising to people. So maybe you're advertising or describing a product in the wrong way, so that it kind of creates a wrong expectation. Or the second thing could also be you're going after the wrong people. So these people are actually not the people that they should be using your product, service, whatever it is, and they cannot get the value out of your product the way you want it to be. So I would check these two elements, and then, but also another thing to think about this is, how can you make them experience the reward more, like, quicker? I spoke about this in the beginning, in the reward section. How can you make them experience the reward? Actually, I didn't talk about that, sorry. But it's like, how can you make them experience the reward more frequently, more obvious, and more pronounced, basically? So can you do things to show them why they should be continuing using your product, basically? Are there any tools to identify customers' emotions and intent? Not really. The best tool is called customer interviews. So talk to your customers and find out why they use your product, or why they don't use your product, or why they use your competitor's product, or why they use a different solution that's not a product at all. So customer interviews is the best tool to understand that, to understand emotions. And then obviously, once you have some hypotheses, you can start testing, right? You can start testing different types of emotional triggers in your ads, on your website, on your app, whatever it is, to see what resonates better. Cool. I'm going to wrap it up with that. I think, Dave, can you tell them how they can get the recording as well? Because some people may want to look at that.
Of course. So we're going to upload the recording to our channel on YouTube. I can just email it to you guys once it's uploaded. And You can also watch the other webinars as well on the same channel. So I'll just send the link to the channel. And Johannes just shared with you guys the slides.
Actually, I sent it to the wrong group, but yeah. Slides. Oops. Slides. There you go. There you go. There's the link to the slides. Please, yeah, and feel free to contact me if you have any more questions.
Thank you, Johannes. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
See you as always. We'll see you soon.